I am in the French Republic, more specifically in its largest and capital city of Paris, at the Tour Eiffel, the iconic Eiffel Tower. But of course, Paris is world renowned, famous everywhere, and it is, in fact, the most visited city on the planet. France is the number one country in terms of tourism, so you're probably gonna come to France and most likely come to Paris, considering it's like the big thing to do in France. But there's a lot more going on in France, a lot more places to see, things to do, and of course, sandwiches to eat, like their national sandwich, Le Croque Monsieur. A brief history of Le Croque Monsieur, the world-famous French cuisine. The fanciest food made by the fanciest chefs and occasionally rodents. With a fancy French name like Le Croque Monsieur, you might be surprised if you don't speak French that it's just a ham and cheese sandwich. But of course, in the French fashion, making it the fanciest ham and cheese sandwich. The fanciness mainly comes from one of France's world-famous specialties, their cheese. France is famous for making cheese and has been making it since the Gallic tribes, with the most popular option on this monsieur to be Emmental, which is technically from Switzerland, but it's the French part of Switzerland, so don't really worry about it. Regardless, the French love cheese, and they have over 400 different types of cheese all across France, with France actually ranking number one in cheese consumption per capita, with the average French person eating 26 kilos of cheese per year, or about 57 pounds for the people the French had to save in their own revolution. Among these cheeses is the famous Emmental, famous for its meltability and nutty flavor, a perfect choice for Le Croque Monsieur. The second ingredient is, of course, ham, which the ancient Gauls also ate, and liked it so much it was actually the symbol for their tribes, the ancient equivalent to France's rooster. Parisian ham is the most popular ham in this type of sandwich, a slow-cooked ham, making sure it retains a lot of its moisture compared to many other cured meats. But the real sauce that gives this sandwich its certain je ne sais quoi is, well, the sauce. Bechamel is a mother sauce in French cooking and the literal glue of this sandwich. Although a simple sauce of just flour, butter, and milk with a bit of spices like nutmeg, it is about as French as it gets. Simple and elegant, straight from the cookbooks of the Sun King himself, Louis XIV. First enjoyed in the court of Versailles, prepared by chef Louis de Bechamel, and spread across France under the famous reign of Louis XIV. Because of course, if the king is eating it, then it must be French, because he is France. L'état, c'est moi. Even after his death, France still remained, and these ingredients of ham, cheese, and bechamel were finally put on a sandwich on yet another iconic French food, the baguette. And everyone was happy until, mon Dieu, it's 1789, and there are no baguettes to make sandwiches because the economy is terrible, the harvest is weak, and people are having these Enlightenment ideas that maybe they should stop paying all their money to the first two estates because Marie Antoinette just keeps making her hair into a boat. So, to grossly oversimplify the French Revolution, they meet in a tennis court, storm the Bastille, cut off some heads, cut off the king's head, make a republic, write an angry newspaper from a bathtub, cut off way too many heads until they try and cut off the head of the guy who charged to cut people's heads off, fight a bunch of wars, basically invent the modern nation state, and all that just to end up with an emperor anyway. So, yes, Napoleon. He did probably enjoy a ham and cheese baguette. Most likely while he was conquering half of Europe. But as every good ABBA fan will tell you, at Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender. However, in all this chaos where everything in France was changing, from the government, rights, and even the calendar, the ham and cheese sandwich was consistent, and stayed that way even when they restored the monarchy, when they overthrew the king for a different king, when they abolished the monarchy and made a second republic, when they elected Napoleon's nephew, who fought a bunch of wars after declaring himself emperor, all the way until 1871, who lost so bad he formed the German Empire, all that just to end up with a communist uprising and eventually a third republic. This sandwich made it through all of that because there's one thing the French care about more than anything, and that is still quality food no matter the circumstances. But the final step to our modern sandwich is the bread. The switch from the baguette finally began when it was first mentioned in the late 1890s. The official story begins around 1910 by a Parisian brasserie owner, Michel Lussaret. One day, following a successful opera, he sold too many sandwiches and ran out of baguettes. Traditionally, all French sandwiches are served on baguettes, but because he had none left, he had to pull out some industrial-produced white bread. He then quickly toasted this bread, giving it a crispy exterior and soft interior to mimic the baguettes, before then layering on ham, cheese, and bechamel, and then covering the top in some extra cheese and sauce for good measure. When he served the customers, they were so confused by the bread, they had to ask the chef what was in the sandwich. As a joke, he responded, "A man." It was so popular that the next day, the brasserie added it to the menu as the Crunchy Gentleman, an oven-baked bread and cheese giving it its signature crunch. And what was apparently the funniest joke in the Third Republic, adding the man. This Crunchy Gentleman in French is of course le croque monsieur, and can be eaten all over le hexagon, and is found in almost every brasserie, becoming an iconic French food. France is also home to the croque madame, the female counterpart, simply topped with a fried egg resembling one of the ladies' hats of the time. The madame and monsieur were enjoyed throughout the next century of French history, from the trenches of Verdun, the beaches of Normandy, the jungles of Indochina, or the deserts of the Sahel. Le croque monsieur has been and will continue to be enjoyed all across France, whether you are Kylian Mbappe or Daft Punk. And we are going to try it in Orléans, one of France's oldest and royal cities. En voilà, le croque monsieur. Now this one, of course, we're here in Allion. It's a little different from the traditional. As you can see, it's on some artisanal bread. But what do you expect from the French? They want to make it classy. We have, of course, the bechamel. This is Emmental cheese and the Parisian ham, all on this bread, served with the traditional sides of the fries and salad. Please note, just because the fries have the name, they are not from France. They are rather from Belgium. But the croque monsieur is very French. Let's go. Give it a taste. Oh. I mean, it's a ham and cheese sandwich. It's gonna be good. But this is what you expect from French cuisine. It's the highest tier of the ham and cheese, elevated, if you will. But a ham and cheese sandwich you can probably enjoy with a glass of wine. And it doesn't feel out of place. You know, it's the bechamel mixes with the cheese and the ham and the artisanal bread to make a beautiful combination of crunchy, savory, and cheesy. Exactly what you'd expect from French cuisine. So, I'm gonna enjoy this while you see more of France. Well, there you have it. That was the sandwich, the croque monsieur. But of course, France has a lot more going on besides just a ham and cheese sandwich. Like here in Dijon, the former capital of Burgundy, where they're famous for their mustard. And there's a whole lot more going on in France, just like Baroque Haussmann-style architecture. The fact that everything is closed in the afternoon because everyone's on lunch/smoking breaks. National landmarks. It's Quasimodo's house. He lives there. Historic landmarks like the Pope's house in Avignon, next to the famous rivers. Whatever Lyon calls tacos. Kylian Mbappe. Then of course there's macaroons, not to be confused with macarons, not to be confused with Macron. And the lovely French historic country roads, full of a bunch of pebbles, which are great in the Tour de France, but are awful to drive on. This is a 2-lane road. What are you doing? So maybe take the train with the world's scariest announcement noise. And of course, French food. Whether it's at the high-class restaurants of Paris reviewed by a French company of Michelin, or at a local pâtisserie. France has some very high-quality cuisine, and one of my personal favorites is the pain au chocolat, or chocolatine, but that's a little further south. So, here we go.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien égal. ma vie, car mes joies aujourd'hui, ça commence avec toi.
Well, there you have it. France. Specifically here on the windy beaches of Normandy, on the famous Omaha Beach, where, of course, in 1944, 80 years ago, they stormed the beaches in the D-Day landings that led to the end of World War II and the liberation of France. And, of course, much like the Second World War, France has been through a whole lot throughout its very, very long history. From wars, revolutions, it's seen empires rise and fall. And through it all, France has maintained their lovely cuisine and culture. And among all of France's famous dishes, one stands out the most to me: the croque monsieur.